A lawsuit in Colorado to keep Trump off the ballot. A real chance or just a dream by Democrats? A sheriff distances himself from the leader of an armed group who says his force will be backing up sheriff's deputies when all hell breaks loose. Big Pharma is funding addiction recovery in Colorado as part of a massive settlement.
We look for potential ways that systems can be done or can be changed that might enhance the work that we're doing.
A wildlife photographer trains his lens on animals in captivity in Colorado. And you asked how you could help migrants being cheated out of their wages. I have an idea. Because you're watching the news, sure, but this is next.
So liberals are all excited about this effort to keep former President Trump off the ballot, including here in Colorado, using the 14th Amendment. It says that you can't run for office if you've been involved in an insurrection. The thing's only been used successfully once in modern times. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger reports on a lawsuit filed today in Denver.
The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868. No one should be deprived of life, liberty, or property. Equal protection. That's Section 1. Section 3 says, no person shall hold any office having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution if they've engaged in insurrection.
I have a little Constitution that sits by my desk where I sit at night, and it's all marked. I had it all marked up. So I knew what it was.
Former Republican State Senator Norma Anderson is one of 6 Republican or unaffiliated voters joining a liberal Washington, D.C. group suing to keep former President Trump's name off future ballots in Colorado.
January 6th was trying to overtake the government. And it spells it out very clearly. If you do that, that's a no-no. You can't serve.
The D.C. group called CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, filed the lawsuit using the 14th Amendment to say Trump is disqualified from running for office. 1 year ago today, CREW, using the 14th Amendment, successfully sued to remove this New Mexico County commissioner after he participated in the January 6th insurrection. The 14th Amendment argument was rejected in a Georgia administrative challenge to try to keep Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from being eligible to be on a Georgia ballot.
Isn't this premature?
No, absolutely not.
Mario Nicholas is one of the attorneys working on this lawsuit, even though Trump has not yet filed the paperwork or paid the $500 to be on the ballot in Colorado.
You can file a lawsuit when the Secretary of State is about to commit a wrong. And in this case, we think that if the Secretary accepts that paperwork, accepts a filing, that's a wrong.
Win or lose, this case will be appealed, and that might be the point.
Eventually, we're going to go to the Supreme Court, and that will have a domino effect across other states as well.
If you don't win and he's on the ballot, are you voting for Donald Trump?
Hell no. Pardon me, that wasn't nice. No, I am not.
She didn't want me to use that, and I used it anyways. Oh, I asked, why doesn't Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold have the power to review someone's eligibility and refuse to put them on a ballot ahead of a lawsuit? All I got as an answer was, she is hopeful that this case will provide guidance to election officials on Trump's eligibility as a candidate for office. Non-answer.
That's what I say when I get sued. I hope this case will provide guidance. This from the Colorado GOP this afternoon. They said never Trumpers, rhinos, and Democrats are colluding to keep Trump off the ballot.
Norma Anderson is a rhino? Well, Dave Williams is already fundraising off of this because that statement was part of a blast email that said they're trying to take away your ability to vote for the candidate that you want. Give us some money so we can fight it.
All right, we'll be watching. Marshall, thank you. Colorado's best-known election denier has a new legal team and a new trial date. Former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters will not be going on trial for felony election tampering till next year. Peters has claimed without evidence that Colorado's elections are rigged. Prosecutors say that Peters breached Mesa County's voting systems in a fruitless search for election fraud. She admits turning over that insider information to fellow election conspiracy theorists. And she is still on that train, despite the indictments of some key figures in the movement. Last month, Peters spoke at an election deniers conference where she said that Marxists and globalists are trying to take over the country. Peters has a standing offer from the Colorado Republican Party to take an official role with them working on election integrity issues while she awaits trial, now scheduled for February 9th. The sheriff of Douglas County is distancing himself from the leader of an armed group who says his men will be backing up sheriff's deputies, quote, if it gets real bad. Previously, Republican Sheriff Darren Weakley had praised Able Shepherd, the tactical group that recently disrupted Dougco Pride Fest. Sheriff Weekly was a guest on the CEO Jimmy Graham's podcast last month. Graham told the sheriff in their conversation that he saw something, quote, coming for our children. And Graham outlined a scenario where the sheriff would want and need his trained men to fend off a threat. The sheriff's response on the podcast? He said, absolutely.
I'm seeing right now creeping in is not sustainable. Like the stuff going on in our county that's creeping in, and I understand that you are there to enforce laws, but I see a thing coming for our children that I'm not okay with, right? If it gets that bad, you're going to want people, you're going to need, people, and they should be people of character that have some level of training, right? Standing to support. The math doesn't add up if it gets real bad, right? So it's all of a sudden we're on the same team
absolutely.
again, 'cause it must be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At no point during the podcast conversation did Delco Sheriff Weekly push back on Graham's scenario of these armed Able Shepherd volunteers joining forces in the streets with deputies as something is coming for children. Yesterday, Graham told us here on Next that Sheriff Weekly was personally aware that his group was organizing a disruption at the Delco Pride Fest. And he said that if his armed trainees were to go and operate alongside law enforcement, Able Shepherd would not be under the authority of the county sheriff because he said that would give them more capability if they were just armed citizens. Today, Sheriff Weekly distanced himself from that scenario in a way that he did not during Graham's podcast. Cooperation between citizens and law enforcement is valuable, but it must be within legal boundaries to ensure everyone's safety, Sheriff Weekly said in a written statement to us. He continued, quote, in the setting of the podcast you referenced, I dismiss the scenario as unrealistic. I should have been clearer in my answer. The Delco Sheriff's Office says it does not have any future planned events in cooperation with Able Shepherd. Last week, the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office told Able Shepherd they needed to stay away from a joint event following Able Shepherd's protest at Pride Fest. So picture a drug treatment facility with a big old sign that says, sponsored by Purdue Pharma. Seems strange, but that's essentially how Colorado is using hundreds of millions of dollars from a settlement with pharmaceutical companies that pushed opioids and drove the addiction epidemic. Here's Mark Salinger.
The number is more than $720 million, a whole lot of money now flowing into Colorado over the next 18 years to tackle drug addiction.
It's a significant amount, but you could always use more for sure.
Denver will get about $38 million of the pot. Yet if you ask Bob McDonald with the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment, stopping people from overdosing in our city will cost a lot more.
Is it helpful to have this money? Absolutely. Are we going to be able to do some new things with it? Absolutely. Is it enough? This amount of money over 18 years can go quickly.
The hundreds of millions of dollars will come from companies like Johnson & Johnson, CVS, Walgreens, Purdue Pharma, and Walmart. We now know how the cash paid out in these settlements will be used here at home.
Harm reduction strategies, we know those work. Distribution of test strips, Narcan to reduce overdoses, education, stigma reduction.
Colorado created 19 new regional collaboratives, as they call them, to allocate the money on a local basis.
19 regions with their own regional councils. They make their own decisions.
Phil Weiser, the Democratic Attorney General, is in charge of how to make sure $700 million doesn't go to waste.
Money can provide more drug treatment. Money can provide better recovery communities. Money can help train people to be service providers.
If we're talking in 5 years, in 10 years, in 18 years, once you had the full 38 million, how do you measure success? What does success look like?
Well, I think the one that bothers me the most is the one that I would look at, the number of deaths that we're seeing.
453 people died from drug overdoses in Denver last year. The number keeps rising.
If we can drive that number down, I will consider it a success.
Is this a problem $720 million can fix? We'll see.
I think it's going to be something that we're dealing with, quite frankly, for many, many years to come.
So while several regions across the state have already allocated how they're going to use their money, Denver has not spent any of it, actually. They say they're making sure it's spent in the right ways before they send it out. Today, we learned they're planning to use the money to open a new treatment facility, launch a new anti-stigma campaign, and Kyle, even test wastewater for fentanyl.
Mark, I feel like every time we talk about the addiction epidemic, we talk about the need for treatment beds. Like, why not just take all the money and put it into beds?
Yeah, so this money will go to separate things like we just talked about. But right now you have a lot of money going to things like Narcan. That's all good and well, but it's only useful once somebody has already overdosed. This new money is going to things like treatment where it can help people on the front side to try and save money on the back side as well as lives.
Mark, thank you very much. Several of you reached out to us after our recent reporting on migrants getting cheated out of wages in the Denver area, and I told you that I would look for a trustworthy group that is in a good position to help. That's why this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports El Centro Humanitario. It's known for decades simply as El Centro. That nonprofit connects day laborers looking for work with ethical employers who promise to pay them fairly, on time, and keep them safe at work. Recently, El Centro has been working with the newcomers to Denver, the migrants here from the southern border. It's through their Bienvenidos a Denver program. We've met some of those migrants here on Next who say they just want to be able to work, to support themselves and their families, but they often run into unethical bosses who don't pay them what they're promised or even pay them at all. El Centro has a long-established employment program connecting employee-employer, but they've branched out into other types of assistance that the newcomers say they need, like coordinating meetings with school districts where their kids are going to class so that they can understand the American education system and help integrate them into our community. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. Your microgiving is powerful. You've proved that. So as always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. El Centro has been watching out for the well-being of the Denver area's day laborers for decades, and they're here to help the newcomers who just want to work and be paid fairly.
The world has a lot of pictures of tigers roaming through the jungle, gorillas in the mist.
So wildlife photographer is capturing images of animals in captivity instead, like at the Denver Zoo. And a Republican newly running for Congress says he is not down with another party telling him what to believe. Too bad, that's the deal his party already made. A Republican state representative is joining the race for one of Colorado's most closely contested congressional seats. Gabe Evans says right off the bat he is not going to abide by the deal that his party, the Republican Party, struck, giving libertarians sway over who the GOP nominates. Evans, who's from Fort Lupton, announced today he's going to seek the GOP nomination in the 8th Congressional District next year. That's northern suburbs of Denver up to northern Colorado. Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo narrowly won that seat over Barb Kirkmeyer last November. And some Republicans have blamed Kirkmeyer's loss on a third-party candidate, a libertarian who got nearly 4%. District's been the focus of a deal between the Colorado GOP and Libertarians. They brokered a deal this year to keep Libertarians out of tight races as long as the Republican who gets nominated signs a pledge to uphold several Libertarian demands. Evans's campaign spokesman told us he's not going to sign this pledge. He's concerned about several of the demands, like abolishing U.S. intelligence agencies. Weld County Commissioner Scott James is already in that GOP primary field for Congress. He has not answered our questions about whether he'll agree to the Libertarians' demands. All I demand of Danielle Grant is just a couple more summer-like days before we slide off into fall, and September always delivers for us.
Always, yes. Okay, so today was so close to 90 degrees. We have a couple more before, yes, we finally see that nice cool off, and it will feel a little bit more like fall. Plus, we'll be tracking some rain around here. This afternoon, 88 officially out of DIA, upper 80s off to the northeastern corner of the state. Still pretty hot, feeling like summer in southeastern Colorado with 70s and 80s to the high country. The one problem with today, we had to deal with a little bit of that smoke coming in from wildfires up there in Canada. Some haze, but otherwise tough to find any clouds out there. We do have an air quality alert in place for far northeastern Colorado around I-70 heading out toward Burlington just because of all that wildfire smoke. It's going to continue through tomorrow morning, but look at this. The worst of it impacting our neighbors across the Dakotas through Nebraska and Kansas. All of that smoke eroding as we're tapping into some southwesterly winds overnight into tomorrow. So this ridge of high pressure just continues to strengthen, helps bringing up those southwesterly winds. That's going to allow for the smoke to move out and for these temperatures to continue to soar. We'll be back to the upper 80s, lower 90s tomorrow. Our sky's a little cleaner for you. Highs close to triple digits around Lamar and Pueblo with 70s and 80s to the mountains. And then look at this. We'll stay steady in the low 90s as we head toward the weekend. 87 on deck for us on Saturday. But late Saturday night into Sunday, a front rolls through. That's going to bring us a good chance for some scattered storms. If you're heading to the Broncos game, heads up. And the 70s, the scattered rain showers, they'll stick around early next week.
CU Buffs logos on our forecast now for the first time in like 7 years. Hey, it's picture day for some residents at the Denver Zoo. The man behind the lens says photos of animals in captivity are a step towards conservation. I think National Geographic wildlife photography, and I'm thinking about a photographer that's like hiding out on the savannah for days to get some perfect picture of a lion. Our Brian Wendland went along with the National Geographic wildlife photographer who has a much easier time finding the animals.
Okay. All right.
It takes a lot of gear to move the needle.
So this is a photographer's desperate attempt to use the back half of his life to make a difference.
For 17 years, Joel Sartori took photographs in the wild for National Geographic.
I did 30 stories, all in the wild. And, only 2 moved the needle of conservation.
Over the past 30 years, he's gone to zoos instead.
The world has a lot of pictures of tigers roaming through the jungle, gorillas in the mist, but we don't really get to see these animals on black and white backgrounds just looking like they're participating.
His project is the Photo Ark, a 15,000 photo catalog of the world's captive species, and it's still growing.
I have a database that's a mile long, yeah.
On Tuesday, Joel added a viper and a crab to the list, always aiming for eye contact.
We're primates. The eye contact motivates people to want to care.
Every shot is meaningful. No animal gets more of the spotlight than any other.
There's no size comparison, no distractions. So the mouse is every bit as big and important as an elephant.
Thousands of photos, thousands of miles traveled.
I was in Japan last week and Kazakhstan the week before that, and here I am at the Denver Zoo today.
All to move the needle.
We helped save a couple species from imminent extinction.
Even if just a little bit.
Just a couple, a beetle and a bird.
For next.
I'm always excited to get everything, whether it's a viper, a butterfly, or a hippo.
I'm Brian Wendland.
They all count, they're all...
I'd be more interested in the hippo than the butterfly, but that's why I'm not a wildlife photographer. Hey, Marissa's back from vacation. Feedback next. Talking with the folks at El Centro recently, and the people who run that nonprofit said that the migrants that they are seeing come to Denver more recently are different than the migrants who arrived here decades ago. Nowadays, they say they're often seeing migrants with more specialized skills, higher education levels, and one thing that means is that the jobs that are open to them are often different if they have the chance to work and get paid fairly. El Centro helps connect them with ethical employers. Their longtime program pairs willing day laborers with ethical employers who agree to pay a certain wage, pay on time, pay fairly, keep people safe. And now El Centro has branched out into other support services for newcomers to help them get established and integrated into our community. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me in donating to this week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. Lots of feedback about today's new lawsuit seeking to keep Donald Trump off the ballot in Colorado using the 14th Amendment, which prohibits somebody running for office after they've been involved in insurrection. Aaron writes, I'll give you 3 guesses of what he hasn't been charged with or convicted of. Starts with an I and rhymes with insurrection. Aaron says, I can't wait to see how everybody flips their bleep when he gets the nomination, then wins. He certainly is the favorite to get the GOP nomination. I wouldn't count out anybody winning, given our current political environment. Ty says, who cares in Colorado? Trump's not going to win Colorado. It doesn't matter if he's on the ballot. I wonder, Ty, if what they're trying to do is set up a challenge where a more liberal district court says, yes, take him off. More conservative court says, no, keep him on. And then off it goes to the Supremes. And a note from Kathy and Bob, thanking the next team, saying that team effort is a model for news channels. That's cool. We love our team. Glad you do too.